But today we're going over UFOs. And yes, they are real. So if you missed the video that was able to be posted, is going over the history of, UFOs have been recorded since the beginning of recorded history. And today, a lot of things they have told us about UFOs are fake. They told us that all this have to do, with what we saw on TV and whatever. But as you see from the videos, even, as long as people have been drawing pictures, going back to cave art, all kind of things, people been seeing a lot of very strange things in the air. And the poster that I use for this show, which is showing Christ and supposedly his wife on it. It looked like a UFO to me. I don't know what you would call it. That painting was done in 1472. And it's called The Miracle of Snow. And it's in a church in Rome. And those things look exactly like what's flying around today. And you have Alexander the Great that was talking about flying shields. You had Ramses the First that was talking about flying shields. You have always had people that talked about these flying chariots, and saw King Solomon had a flying chariot and all this stuff. And this stuff has been around for a very long time. Because what most people do not realize is that, see, when we think of the gods or alien visitors, we think of superpowers. But, power comes in three forms. Power can be, like what I tell people a lot. 1/3 of the gods was born with power. 1/3 of the gods was given power. Okay, the ones that was born with power, quote unquote, example of that is Superman. The ones that was given power is like Thor. We're going by the example of what we see in the movies. And 1/3 of the gods do not have any power. They have something called technology. For example, Iron Man, Batman. Okay. But as you can see in the movies, it doesn't make any difference if you're born with power, if you was given power, or if you have technology that gives you power and learn power. You are equal. You are all one. And this is what we are finding out now that we are starting to look into things. And this is what they cover a lot on Ancient Aliens, is that a lot of things that we thought was, was superpower, now that we are advancing ourselves, and we're seeing, paintings in India, or artwork in the Middle East, or in all over the world. A lot of this stuff looks like technology. It looks like exactly the same thing we do. And we have little, God figures that look like they have what they're wearing backpacks, or in India where they have the Vimanas that the gods used to fly, and they talk about this yellow fluid and liquid mercury that powered these crafts. This doesn't seem like, most people, when they think of these creatures, especially back before, we was thinking that they had some magical ability to fly, this and that and everything else. But a lot of these beings, like Iron Man, just have technology. And with their technology, it gives them superpower, super ability. And one person's Superman to another person is not a Superman. A perfect example of that is American soldiers that are fighting over there in Afghanistan and everything. To the regular people of Afghanistan, our soldiers are like Superman, because our soldiers can be shot 10, 15 times and they're still standing because they're wearing basically bulletproof everything. And you shoot one of their soldiers one time and they're dead. Okay? And how is that possible? How come we can get shot over and over and over again and we're still standing, and they get shot one time and they're not standing? It's because we have technology. And technology have always ruled the world. This is how the Romans was able to take over Europe, and the Vikings was able to take over. As soon as somebody finds a weapon that is superior, this is why the Spanish and the conquistadors, with just a few men, was able to defeat the Indians of Mexico. Okay, because just a few men on horseback and with their cannons, the Indians had no defense against that. And they was able to defeat the Mayan, the Inca. Everybody fell because they had no defense. This is the same problem we would have today. This is what, but in the movies, when you see things like Independence Day and whatever, where these alien groups are coming all the way from millions of miles from across space, and we meet them, we're able to take up our F-16s and F-22s, and we're able to defeat these people. But in reality, that's very, very hard. And sometimes, you can't turn the tables. Okay. The Indians was able to defeat Custer in a single battle. When you had the Zulus, they almost ran, the British out of South Africa. Okay. But it was super lopsided. One British soldier could kill 50 Zulu soldiers. Okay. But their weapon was just sheer number. And that is the weapon that they use. But in reality, these beings and these crafts that we was told is something which was invented by science fiction have always been around. And it doesn't go by, if you go by Sumerian texts, if you're talking about the Bible, where when you had the Israelites in the desert, for 40 years, it said by day they was shielded by a giant cloud. And at night it was an illuminated something that protected them. Who knows what this is? Was that a big giant ship? Or what was that? That hovered over them all the time and protected them in the desert. Okay. We have no idea because we don't have any cameras. We don't have anything. The only thing we have is what people drew. And this is why, for one reason, they don't want us to look at history. Because when we look at history and when we look back to see what was drawn in medieval times or before or in Roman times, we start seeing things that we say, wait a minute, that doesn't look like supernatural. That looks like technology to us. And these beings have been here. And if you read some of these books, these beings have been here for an extremely long period of time. And according to some of the books, like Necronomicon and several of these other books, they've been here even before we was here. Okay. Perfect example of that is Necronomicon. They talk about when they first came to this planet, that the old ones was here. And they had, leather skin and clover feet, the dinosaurs. Okay. And the dinosaurs blasphemed against God and was destroyed from the surface of the earth. And they chased them into their underground caves. And then the Anunnaki refused to work, whatever that means. And then the new ones were created, a worker race. I guess that's us. We are considered the new ones. We was created to work for them. Okay. So this game been going on a very long time. Very, very long. And it seems like these circular craft have been around for a very, very, very long time. And people have been recording these things and drawing pictures of them. And back in medieval times, they was thinking that these circular craft had something to do with angels. And because in a lot of religious paintings, they show circular craft in those religious paintings. We don't put circular craft in religious paintings today because we do not associate aliens with God. In fact, a lot of religious people today, when you talk about aliens, they'll just come out and tell you those are demons. Okay. They did not believe that in medieval time. Okay. But to some of this, they did know that there was different groups of them. Back in Jesus' day, there was a group of people called the Gnostics, and they called them archons. But they talk about these beings that looked at like aborted fetuses that had a hatred of man. And they talk about these creatures. Okay. And these creatures, from their description of these archons, sounds exactly like gray aliens. Okay. So none of this stuff is new. And we like to believe that everything that's going on in the world now is something that is new and never been around before. But this is not the case. The world has been around and have always been here, and everything is cyclical. Time goes around in a circle. And this have always been. And this goes into, but what we refer to as these creatures keep changing. So are we referring to these creatures? In some books, they refer to them as the Watchers. In some books, they refer to them in different ways, the gods, the sons of God. Some people, we really don't know. Because what we need them to do, which they still haven't done yet, is go on, with one of the Sunday talk shows and to do an interview. And to sit down and tell us where they're from and what they're doing here and that and everything else. But that's not going to happen. Because the analogy is, if you live in Brazil or Argentina or in a country halfway around the world, American soldiers are everywhere. We're not going on their Sunday talk shows talking about what we're doing in their country and what we're doing. Okay. A lot of times we're in their country and don't even know. We have 190 military bases in the world. A lot of these bases don't fly American flags. Okay. And this is what's going on with us. Is not only do these ships predate time and history, but, there's always been these legends of, the gods living on top of the mountains, and then the gods was living on the clouds, and then the gods always lived right out of range of the normal person. They always like to keep their distance from us. Okay. They always like having that slight separation. But not too much separation, because they also have, since the beginning of time, interfered in our affairs. Which, even, Alexander the Great talked about when he was attacking some cities and he would have trouble knocking down the walls, that these ships would come and fire lightning bolts and the walls would fall down. Isn't that considered cheating? Even in the Bible, they was having trouble in one war, and they said that the sun was starting to set, and the sun stood still in the air so they could finish the battle. This, they have always had their favorites. They have always had their nations that they worked with, and they have always had nations that they have always worked against. Okay, and these are some of the miracles, which, we're not going to talk about that today, but every religion has their miracles that save their religion. And Christianity was saved several times from being destroyed. From the Huns tried to destroy Rome, and that didn't work out. And, you had the miracle, the Battle of Venice. You had a lot of things. So, but every religion have these stories about these lopsided battles where they knew they was losing. And let me give you an example of one. Since we always talk Christianity, we'll go beyond Christianity. Let's talk about, when the Muslims invaded India. And the Muslims they did not like the Hindus, and they was conquering across India, and they wanted to get rid of the Hindu religion. So they was burying all the Hindu gods because the Muslims was just too strong. Okay. And in one of the battles, the major battles that was going to basically, win the war for the Muslims, the king knew he was going to win, so he brought all of his wives to the battle to see his big victory. And in the middle of the battle, his favorite wife went into labor, and she died. And he was so heartbroken that he stopped the war in the middle of the war. Even though he was winning, he stopped the battle and withdrew all of his forces so he could bury his wife. And he spent the next 7 years building a mortuary for his dead favorite wife. That mortuary we know as the Taj Mahal. Okay. And he swore he would never attack the Hindus ever again. It saved India. It saved their religion. Okay. The same thing, these miracles by these forces. Or, sometimes we see these forces, sometimes we don't. But, we have always been, this is what the Greeks used to call divine comedy. They have always been this force from behind the scenes, which seems to control what happens in our world. That's why the Greeks called it divine comedy, because the Greeks believed that our life was just for the amusement of the gods. And they made things happen, good or bad, for their amusement. Our life, our civilization, everything is just a soap opera to them. And if the soap opera get kind of too boring, then they make something happen that they make it more exciting. Okay. Just like you see in Star Wars and everything else. You don't want to have too much talking and too many things. You need to have more fighting scenes and more this and that. And they like the excitement. And that's what they do in our life. And they seem to, which has been recorded since the beginning of time, these craft that seem to just hover above and just watch everything. And, as I mentioned before, Ramses the First, one of the great kings of Egypt, mentioned about this. These shields that was just hovering over their cities. And these, they didn't know what was going on. We still don't know that today. But the difference today is we have something called video cameras. We have something called YouTube, where if you see something, you can take a picture of it or a video and you can post it. And some of this stuff people are taking pictures of all over the world. Yeah, there's a few fake stuff, but some of this stuff is just really strange. Okay. And we need to keep doing this, because this proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is not an American problem or a Russian problem or an African problem. This stuff is going on all over the world. And we don't even want to get into the millions of people that are missing. Okay. Yes, we do have some serial killers out there and whatever, but there's just a lot of people missing all over the world. And nobody want to talk about that subject. And we're going to talk about that subject probably after the new year. But this is some very scary stuff. Okay. But where are these ships going? Now, we have some ideas about these ships, because sometimes, normally we just see these ships up in the air doing things. They're traveling from point A to point B. And to us, it looks strange, but the analogy is, if you're living in the rainforest in Brazil, you see these strange things going from point A to point B. They don't know what a 747 is. They don't know where it came from. They don't know where it's going. It's just flying over the Amazon. Okay. They have no idea. This is what we see when we see these little circular craft. They're going from point A to point B, and we have no idea where these things are going, and we have no control over what these things are doing. Okay. And we are just observing. But sometimes these things, just like with our aircraft, sometimes they don't make it, sometimes they have problems, and they crash. And on these craft that have crashed, if, we believe that these things are coming from other worlds and 10,000 light years away, 20 light years away, 100 light years away, but most of these craft that don't make it and they end up sticking out of the ground, normally they don't have any supplies in them. Because the reason is, if you're going from point A to point B, you don't need supplies. And what is the secret, which we discussed before, is that most of these circular crafts are not going from Alpha Centauri, or they're not going to Reticuli. Most of these craft are just going from one of their bases over here to one of their bases over there. I guess they have their airline service just like we do, and they do their little routes and whatever. Okay, that's what we see. Because when these things crash, they have a handful of people on them, but they don't have no supplies. And if you're going to cross vast areas of space, you got to bring something, right? You got to at least bring a lunch, right? Maybe a blanket. But they don't have anything. Because when you're just going, it's just like when a little Cessna crash. It's just not a stuff in there, because they were just going from one airport to another airport. And this is the secret that we don't know, is that we're waiting for the aliens to come. The secret is they're already here. Okay. And they've been here for a very, 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 very long time. So where are they? Well, as we know, as we talked about so many times, that, they're coming from two different places. We have, there's something called that war that is still going on out there. It's a Cold War, but that war is still going on. So they're not all united. They're not all holding hands, singing that Kumbaya down here or up there. And we have the Earth is a rebel-held planet. We are near the front line, but the rebel alien groups their bases are located inside the Earth, and the government forces are located on our moon, inside the moon. The moon is hollow, and the Earth is really not hollow. It just have these giant cavities inside of it, which they have put their cities in. Okay, and that is what they do. And, the Russians and all these other people, normally when we pass each other in the air, we don't shoot at each other. But it has been recorded all over the world where you got sometimes they get mad at each other. And these little circular things are firing at each other. They try not to do that. But normally, they have their problems just like we do. But they are already here. The only difference about in the future is they're going to make themselves known. Because remember, they have decided to, they're going to help us in polar shift and to cross over. They're going to help us rebuild after all of the damage of coming polar shift. And for those who don't know what polar shift is, that's going to be, every, that worldwide earthquake where the axle tilt of the earth moves and the continents change position. That happens every 12,500 years. We are coming up on that. The last time that happened, if you believe in science, that was called the end of the Ice Age. If you believe in the Bible, that's called the flood of Noah's day. Okay. And the earth changed. Okay. And the old earth changed into the new earth. Sea level rose by 400 feet. All the continents moved. And, it was a lot of people didn't make it. Okay. This time they're going to try to help us. And of the 7 billion people on this planet, they're going to try to cross 5 billion of us to the other side. And they're going to help us rebuild. But they need to make themselves known before that time. And the problem is not everything is not a free lunch. They're going to help us. They're going to save us. But after this time, we will be together as one. Okay. There will be no more separation. The top of the pyramid will be on the pyramid again. There will no longer be that blank spot between the pyramid and the top of the pyramid. When you see the Illuminati pyramid now, there's a blank spot. They're going to eliminate that blank spot and put the pyramid back on there. We will be one again. Okay. So it will be different. Okay. And that's what these people from the future talk about, is that we're going to live in this super futuristic world that they're going to build. Okay. And that's what people talk about who have seen some of these cities inside the earth. They talk about they're hundreds of years ahead of us. Okay. Maybe thousands. But it's not going to be our world. It's going to be their world. That's why these people from the future talk about how wonderful it is, but how everything you do is controlled. Okay. And we're saying that just with technology today. We're wearing a tracking device on us 24 hours a day. Our phones are keeping tabs on everything we do. You know, when you're doing Google on when you're using Navigator in your car, it's telling you how fast you're going and what. There's no privacy left. Okay. All of your messages are being saved indefinitely. Every phone call you ever made on your phone is being logged and tracked. In the future, it's going to be 100 times worse. And if it's like that with 4G, just wait till 5G. Not only will everything be recorded that way, it will probably be recorded visual, not only, right now, because of 4G, they can't record video. Everything's going to be recorded. So it will be a good side and a bad side. Okay. And that's what they do in England. In England, England has more cameras than any other city in the world. And when there's a murder in England, they just need to know, in London, what street it was on, and they play the tape back, and they can see the person getting murdered, and they can use facial recognition and blow up the person's face, and then they issue an arrest warrant for that person, and you go to court, and they play back the video of you murdering the person. You can plead not guilty if you want to. I got it on video. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Okay. So this is the future, and they are here. So do we have a choice? No. The only choice we have is disclosure is about letting us know what is going on. Because, as I said, they are tired of hiding, and with our technology, they had to make the choice that they decided that we're going to be able to cross because we did not earn our crossing. Supposedly to cross, we were supposed to turn the world back into a paradise and solve all of our problems. We definitely didn't do that. We are unworthy to cross. So Mom is going to fix the problems. And they're going to solve all of our technical problems. But remember, when Mom clean up your room, you're crying. Because Mom just takes the big garbage bag, go in your room, and your room is spotless when she gets done. But she threw out your comic book collection, your this, your that, everything's gone. But your room is spotless. So, in this new world that they're going to create, it will be spotless, it will be beautiful, we will have all this high technology. But it's a trade-off. But this is where we're going. But the purpose of the video was to let people know that they are real. They have always been here. They have always been watching us. They are the watchers. They watch us. They know everything we're doing. And, it's great in movies that we're able to rise up and to fight these people. But the problem is they know where all of our cities are. We don't know where none of their cities are. We know very little about what's going on inside the earth. We know nothing about what's going on inside the moon. So we basically just need to work with these people and come out with some kind of mutual agreement because they are in our future and our goal is oneness. We want to be one with them. Okay. And we definitely don't want to blaspheme against them and be destroyed because we don't have the weapon systems that they have. So, this is our meeting for today.